Hello and welcome to episode 59 of the Epic Classroom Podcast. My name is Trevor and I like to talk about teaching, whether it's stories and ideas from my own classrooms or lessons I've learned from other educators. I just love to explore ways to help students grow and thrive in school, but also for their educators to thrive as well. And so that's what this podcast is. Whatever you teach or however you serve in schools, how can you lead a more impactful, dynamic, meaningful, and epic classroom? And we're back. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Trevor, and man, it's been a little bit. I took a little break from the podcast known as summer, and now summer is over. And so I'm so excited to share some new ideas and content with you. And one of the places I love to do it most is here on the Epic Classroom Podcast. I feel like your thoughts get to breathe a little bit in a podcast, a little bit more space to really dive deeper that you don't really have space to in the same way as an article or a video or even a speaking engagement. Those are great. All of that is great, but a podcast, I feel like you can really just dive into it. And so I love getting to do this, and I love that you're here listening. It has been a really busy but good summer. You know, if you've been following me for a while, or even if you haven't, you should know I love getting to go around and tell stories to people and share ideas and thoughts and information and practices that I've picked up from my own experiences, but then also from getting to spend so much time with other educators. And so this last summer has largely been either spending time with my family or out at schools and conferences, getting to speak and lead workshops and hold conversations and discussions and do all of that. And it's been so good. And I've gone all over the place this last summer. And it's been so much fun getting to do that, from all the way over to England and then Texas and New York and Florida and Kentucky and lots of places in between. It has been a blast. But now that back to school season and summer professional development season has come to an end. I finished my last speaking gig of this big, busy season in New York this week. And now I'm back home and I'm getting to spend time in classrooms and in podcast booths here at my local library and getting to write and create and think and spend time at an intimate level with educators in my area and students in my area. And it's just like, now I'm getting to take a deep breath. And so I am so thrilled to get to record the first Epic Classroom Podcast of this new season, I guess. I've never really called the recording sessions of this podcast seasons, but I guess it's kind of like that. You know, I think a lot of life is seasons. You know, you get the busy seasons, and then you get the calm down seasons, and then you get the super hectic seasons, and then you get the peaceful seasons. And they just kind of seem to come and go. And summer, for me, is kind of a mix of all of it. You get the super busyness of traveling and being on the road, and very little time to actually sit down and create, which is one of my favorite things to do. But then it's also a lot of time with family and exploring the outdoors and camping and vacation and rest. And it's all kind of mixed in there. For me, the season that we're in now is a little bit of both, but it's also like, all right, let's write, let's create, let's spend time in classrooms, let's do some of those things that are just cup filling. So anyway, that's my long way of saying it is good to be with you all today. I want to talk about calculators. I want to talk about artificial intelligence. And I want to talk about math and art class and music class. So we're going to talk about those things, not necessarily in that order. But settle in with that, whatever it is you're doing. Let's dive into calculators first. I might have shared this before on a podcast before, but it's something I've been talking a lot about lately and sharing. Did you know in the 1970s, when calculators were first, like personal calculators were first invented, right? Like we've had forms of calculators for a long time, but like when they had the technology to put it in people's pockets, they started becoming widespread in American homes all over the place. By like 1975, I think personal calculators were in 1 in 9 American homes. So there was a lot of homes they weren't in, but they were starting to really like infiltrate society, right? Like millions of people had calculators at homes, and for good reason, right? Calculators, we take for granted how insane it is that you can just push in numbers and it solves the problem for you. So like American homes were like, yeah, we want these for taxes, or we want these for simple math, whatever it is, we got them. But did you know in the late 1970s, almost 100% of schools banned calculators, right? You couldn't have calculators in schools, but we had them in our homes. And it's like, well, that's funny. But you go and like think about it. It's like, oh, well, it made sense why you would have banned them in schools, right? Like they obviously can get in the way of student learning. They can get in the way of hard problem solving. I was reading this old New York Times article recently about this subject. And I was like, yeah, well, I wonder what people are thinking about it back then. And I saw this professor of mathematics at California Polytechnic State University in Sonoma, California, back in the 1970s. He said, in reference to calculators, he said, I understand the principle. Get students motivated. Make math a little bit easier by giving them these calculators, and therefore they'll be motivated to learn other math. So he said, I get the principle. But then he says in quotes, but I have yet to be convinced that handing them a machine and teaching them how to push the buttons is the right approach to teaching math. And then he says this famous line, or at least it seems it should be famous. He says, but what do they do when the battery runs out, right? What do we do when the calculator isn't working? How are they supposed to solve this math? And that was a very logical question back then. Well, when the battery runs out, how are we going to keep calculating? We have to teach them math so that when they don't have calculators, they'll be able to still solve the problem. But then that problem kind of got solved in the 1980s when they put these little solar panels on calculators, and now the battery doesn't run out. And then they've taken a step further, and it's like, well, what if we put the calculator on your cell phone? What if you're able to just talk to your phone and it solves it for you? You just say, hey, Siri, what is this problem? And it solves it immediately. What happens when you have artificial intelligence where you can take your phone and scan any math problem in human existence and it will solve it for you instantly, and it'll show the work, right? Like, so I get what you're saying, Dr. McKinney, in the mid-1970s, but the battery running out really isn't a primary concern anymore. Because if your battery runs out on your calculator, you have other options, right? Like, so I get that. But then, I ask this question to teachers all the time, like, why do you think they banned these calculators in the 70s? And the answers are always the same, and it always makes sense. It's because we want students to learn how to solve the problem on their own. We want them to use their brains. Like, we want it to be used in this way. Right? Like that's the point of math class, is for them learning how to do this work. And so when we have calculators, it helps skip those steps, and therefore they're not getting that same challenge. They're not learning to problem solve in the same way. So it's like, I get it. And so in the 1970s, we banned calculators in schools. I get why we did that. But you can try to stop the tide all you want. Did you know within a decade of when they banned calculators, the College Board was mandating their use on the AP exam, right? Like if you took the AP exam in the 1980s, you had to use a calculator. So it's like, all right, we tried to resist it, but like now it's mandated. And by 1990, they were almost in every single school in the country, right? You can try to stop innovation, but it's going to keep on coming. I read this quote recently. This is so good. In the late 17th century, so we're talking 1600s, this guy named Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, he designed a machine to mechanize the calculation of trigonometric and astronomic tables. He created a really cool calculator back in the 1600s. And he got pushed back by it. Like, wait, we should be doing those tables on paper, not using your machine, Gottfried. And he said, his quote from the late 17th century, he said, "It is unworthy of excellent men to lose hours like slaves in the labor of calculations." So he's like, I'll just say it again. I just love that. He says, "It is unworthy of excellent men to lose hours like slaves in the labor of calculations." So he's like, listen, I got this machine that saves you hours of work. So why would you waste your time doing that? Why would you waste your time laboring, he says, to lose hours like slaves in the labor of calculations when we have a machine that will do it for you. And I look back at the history of calculators in American schools, and it's like, I get why we banned them. I absolutely do. But you can't resist it sometimes. The innovation's going to keep moving forward, whether you like it or not. And here's the thing, whether you like it or not, sometimes I don't like it. I don't necessarily like the innovation. I still understand the sentiment, and I agree with the sentiment of banning them in schools, because guess what? Kids are getting to skip the hard work of problem solving when you say you can just punch it into a calculator. And that's why to this day, there's still teachers that say, nope, no use of calculators while we learn this. Or, hey, parents, please don't let your students use calculators for their homework. My little boy, Jack, and I got a sense of a memory that I might have shared this on the podcast before. So if I have, either listen again or just do that little skip 30 seconds button. But my boy Jack was doing math homework last year, and he was having to learn how to find a common denominator. And he's like banging his head down on the table. And he's like, Dad, why do I have to do this? Can I just use your calculator? I'm like, no, buddy, you can't use the calculator. Your teacher said they don't want you to use calculators during this. And then Jack asked the age-old question that kids have been asking since the dawn of math class. He said, but Dad, when am I ever even going to use this? And what I want to say to Jack is I want to just cross my fingers behind my back and be like, oh, buddy, you're going to be factoring polynomials and finding common denominators and doing long division on paper the rest of your life. You're going to be doing it every single day, and that's why we're learning how to do this right now. But that's why I cross my fingers behind my back, by the way, because let's be honest, you're not going to be doing that. We don't teach math, or at least this is my opinion, but I've talked to a lot of math teachers about this, and they seem to agree. I'm not teaching you how to find a common denominator because you're going to have to do that someday. You don't. And especially in this day and age, you don't need to. There is enough technology that can do that type of math for you. But also, let's be honest, unless you are going into a mathematic career, which they are there, and we need to keep training students for them, unless you're going to be an engineer, but even still, we got more technology than we ever thought we would. Unless you're doing that, you're not actually going to have to find a common denominator anyway. It's just not part of everyday life. So I can't really say that to him, even though that's kind of what I was told a lot growing up. Like, well, you're going to have to learn math because someday you're going to have to use it. Well, no, I guess not. So, that can't be my response. And what I want to say to him is well, listen, buddy, I would love for you to use your calculator, but there's this little thing called neuroplasticity you need to know about. That when you do hard work like math, when you do complex math challenges, your brain is actually forming new neural connections, right? New neural pathways are forming because you can't take the old pathway. It's hard, and so it's going to have to find a new way around that obstacle. And guess what? Those pathways your brain is forming when you're learning this math, when you're learning to find a common denominator, they're permanent. Meaning, even when you're not finding common denominators anymore, your brain's going to be bigger than it used to be. You're going to be able to solve problems faster and better because you did this math. And there's also something, buddy, called automasticity, that when you solve these problems over and over and you get better and better at them, your brain's going to become more automatic at solving problems. You're going to be better at solving problems quickly, instantly, than you ever were before. And you can only develop these types of neural connections by learning math and doing your homework with no calculators. So no, my man, you can't use your calculator for this. So I want to say all that, but I'm still just going to get a blank stare. He's going to be like, what? So it's like, So I'm like, I don't know exactly what the answer is to tell him, but I do know, I feel this deep feeling inside that it's like, oh yeah, this is why they banned calculators. But also there's all that reason why they unbanned them or allowed calculators with restrictions. And so it's like, yeah, buddy, you can't use your calculator for this. But also you need to learn how to use a calculator, right? And that's what good teachers do, obviously. They say, you know what, I want you to learn it, but then I want you to be able to become efficient at it. And part of becoming efficient at something is using the technologies that we have at our disposal. It's both. Right? Like, do I believe in traditional math instruction that says no calculators? Yes, because I want neuroplasticity. I want automasticity. I want my son to have a prefrontal cortex that is useful and powerful the rest of his life. Yeah, I believe in traditional math instruction. But also, since I can't really tell him how to find a common denominator because I haven't had to do that in a good, clean 30 years, I can pull out my cell phone and I can go to ChatGPT and I can say to it, explain to me how to find a common denominator. And then I can say, explain this to me as if I was a fifth grader. And then I can read that back to my son and we can practice it together. And we can have this little personal tutor on the supercomputer that I carry in my pocket. And it will literally teach him how to do it one-on-one right here. And all of a sudden he's learning how to do it well and he's passing his test and he's getting an A in math class. And I'm like, holy smokes, this technology is available to us. This technology just helped him learn how to do this skill that I wouldn't have been able to help him with. Because again, I haven't used this type of math in a long time. I did it back then, and I think my brain is better because of it, but I don't remember how to do it. And if this was back in the if this was back in the 1990s, my mom didn't know how to do it, and so she wasn't able to help me at homework, and my dad didn't know how to do it, and he couldn't help me at homework. So the response would have been back then, well, Trevor, go and ask your math teacher to help you with this. But then I'd go to school, and my math teacher would love to help me with this, but they also have 29 other students that they're serving and working with. So if she's not able to help me really quickly, then I just kind of start drowning in math work, and I start falling behind. And math is all progressive, and it builds on it, and I start falling behind, and I fall behind. And what do you know it? By the end of high school, I hated math, and I didn't excel in math. And it's like, yeah, because that's what happens in math if you fall behind, and there isn't a capacity to help you one-on-one. But now my boy Jack doesn't have to experience that because I've got this AI technology that is free and available, and he's able to learn math so much quicker and more efficiently because I have this technology, and he does well in math, and so much of it is attributed to this little personal tutor he has. And I'm like, okay, so do I still believe in traditional math with no calculators? Yes. Do I believe in innovative math that uses artificial intelligence to teach math? Yes, I believe in both. Both have a place, right? But both help my son grow and achieve and grow, right? I just think that is one of the call to action as educators, is to root ourselves in tradition that still has a place. Root ourselves in math instruction and English instruction and history, and root ourselves in education that grows the brain so that it is powerful forever and ever. But then also be open to innovation that also helps grow the brain forever and ever, that also helps our students become the type of people that they have the potential of becoming. It's all there, right? I think sometimes it's really easy to get stuck in the past and say, no, this is how we do things. So it's like, yeah, I get that. And it's also easy to say, oh, there's something bright, new, and shiny. No, this is the new way of doing things. And it's like, well, actually, what if it's both? As the discussion is about should school change, I think the answer is like, yeah, of course school should change. But also, should school hold on to some things that we still know are valuable in work? Of course they should, right? So this is what I've been talking about a lot this summer. And that's why I wanted to kick off this new season of the podcast, is this mindset that I think is so important that we adopt. It's what true innovation is. Innovation doesn't mean throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Innovation doesn't mean replacing best practices with something new and shiny until something else new and shiny comes along. Then we got to throw that old one out, and then we got to adopt the new one. No, that's not what innovation means. Innovation means adding value to best practices, meaning I'm adding value to what's already strong and firm and has a place in the world. Now, sometimes we do have to discard things. Sometimes we do have to say, you know what? Maybe there was a time in the past where, the 45-minute lecture had a place. Maybe people had better attention spans back then. There was less distractions, less media, less technology. And I could hold the attention of a 14-year-old for 45 minutes while they took notes, and they would remember some of that information. Now, I don't know if that's always been completely true, but it was a lot easier back in the day. But guess what? There's enough research that shows that you are not going to hold an adolescent's attention for 45 minutes of you just talking and them being expected to listen. That type of lecture does not have a place in schools anymore. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact. Look at the data. Look at the attention span of students. Look at the student success rate, especially of students who are not as motivated for a number of reasons. It's like, yeah, you know what? The 45-minute lecture might be a remnant of the past. Maybe it's time that we find other ways to break up lectures or other ways to instruct. Now, does that mean we throw direct instruction out completely? No, of course not. If it did, I'd be out of a job, right? Like I spent a lot of my career instructing, teaching, talking, telling stories, sharing big ideas, sharing small ideas, demonstrating, modeling. Like that's direct instruction. So I've got to do it, but I can't talk for 45 minutes straight and expect anyone, teachers included, to actually want to pay attention to me. I have to break up my lectures, my talks, my presentations, my keynotes with turn-in talks and discussions or opportunities for people to sit and reflect or to show a video or a piece of media. I've got to be able to shift the brain up. And so, yeah, there's this innovative piece where I've got to break up what I'm doing. There's this traditional piece of still creating a space for direct instruction that still has value. I've got to hold on to that too, right? Innovation is about adding value to what already works. It means changing things, but doesn't mean abandoning things. And I think that is something we have to hold on to as we move forward, as we look at all of the unknowns in the education world. And there are a lot of them. AI is powerful. AI is here. It's not going anywhere. And that's not the only technology that exists. There is a lot happening, and it's happening really, really quickly. And I think those are conversations we have to have. But we have to do all of that. We have to have the conversations about what do I want to hold on to and what do I want to get rid of and what do I want to add to my work. I think all of that has to be held knowing that there are good things that never change and there are things happening that cause change, right? Like, I was with a bunch of art and music teachers recently who are a really fun group of people to be around because they start their work so inherently with their own personal passions, and then their work is largely about teaching other people how to hold those passions as well and how to do them well. And somebody was telling me all about the brain development and all of the different types of development that happens when students are engaged in art and music class, right? Like when students are engaged in music or art class, it's creating all of these connections between the left and right hemispheres of their brains, right? Like they're doing all of this problem solving on the left side of their brain, like all of that mathematical type thinking as they're learning to read music. But then it's also being combined with this abstract thinking, like this creative thinking on the right side of the brain, and it's tying them together. So often in school, it's like, all right, we're doing creative writing, let's engage the right side of the brain. Oh, we're doing math, let's do the left side of the brain. Oh, we're learning the periodic table, let's stick with the left side of the brain. And oh, we're learning grammar, let's stick with the left. Oh, we're doing poetry, we'll go back to the right. But when you do an art and music class, it's tying them together, right? Like it's pulling it all in together. And then also they were telling me in art and music, like it's about self-expression and students feeling safe to have this emotional outlet in school, and they're having to exercise empathy as they think about what does their audience need and how do I create and produce something to meet those needs, and it's building confidence. And obviously, when students are in band, it's about teamwork and collaboration and ensembles and choirs and group art projects. All of that is about working with other people. So like you've got all of this stuff going on that is more than just learning how to paint. That's more than just learning how to play the saxophone. You've got this much deeper transferable thing that's happening in art and music class. And so when I look at that, I'm like, yeah, do we have a lot of technology in the world? Yes. Do we have a lot of things changing about the world? Yes. Do we need to hold on to art class and music class? Undeniably, yes, because it's about forming human beings. And it goes back to the same conversation. What do we hold on to and what do we need to adopt? And it's like, well, one of the things we got to hold on to is art and music, is banning calculators when it's appropriate to ban calculators, to say no to cell phones when it's appropriate to say no to cell phones, but then also giving up the space to saying, yeah, but you know what? Sometimes we need technology. Sometimes we can do really amazing things with cell phones. Sometimes we can do really amazing things with AI. Sometimes we can change how we did things forever in the past because it needs to be changed because the old way isn't working in the same way. Like it's all of it. It's complex. It's complicated, but it's also what we need to do, right? The world is constantly changing, and I think school has to change with it. but that doesn't mean throwing a baby out with the bathwater. It's recognizing that there is this deep value to what we do in school and helping students become what their potential is, right? Like, I think that's the litmus test. I've been doing this keynote this year, and I'm not completely sure what the title is. I've been calling it the Innovative Teacher's Mindset. I've been calling it Teaching in a World That Won't Stand Still. I've been thinking about calling it like the Innovation Litmus Test, because this is what the litmus test is. And this is really what the innovative teacher mindset is. And this is what teaching in a world that won't stand still is really all about. It's asking the question, do the innovations we bring to school, whether it's innovations in technology or innovations in pedagogy or innovations in curriculum, does the innovation ultimately help students develop into their full potential? Or another way of phrasing it, does it help them become the graduate we know they have the potential of becoming, right? What do we want students to be like? And this is something I've been putting so much thought into the last few years. Actually, the book I'm writing right now, or at least I started it last spring, took a big old fat break for this busy summer, and now I'm back into it, is really asking the question, what is the portrait of a graduate? What do we want students to be like at the end of this K-12 experience? And then once we can name that, once we can say, yep, I want them to be creative and innovative and collaborative and kind and empathetic and engaged and passionate and all these things, then we have to ask, all right, well, what should school look like to help them become that? Like, what do we want? If we want students to be this, then what should instruction and time in school be to get them there? And when we ask, what is the litmus test for adding a new innovation to school? Does it help them become that? Because if it doesn't, I'm not really sure what the point of it is. If we're just banning calculators because that's what you've always done, I don't think that's a good enough reason. If we're just continuing to teach the same content, the same exact content that we've always done because, well, that's school. We teach this content and that's what we do. I don't think that's a good enough reason. I think there's got to be a purpose behind it. Now, if you can say, yep, you know what? We're going to continue to teach this content. We're going to continue to make kids memorize the periodic table because if they can do that and they can apply it in some way, it helps them grow their brains in this way that they will benefit from it the rest of their lives if you can articulate that. And then you can find ways to engage students here in the 21st distracting century. If you can do that and you can articulate why there's a good reason for it, then heck yeah. Let's keep doing it. But ultimately, all innovation, all changes we add to school should, in my opinion, be about helping students develop into their full potential. And I know that's what you already do. And that's why it's a joy getting to connect with you, whether it's this podcast or my writing or videos or when I get to go and speak and be with you at schools or conferences. It really is a joy and an honor to be with people who dedicate their lives to helping kids, children, students, reach that potential that they have. So anyway, thanks for connecting here. My name is Trevor Muir. This is the Epic Classroom Podcast. If you want to check out the rest of my work, you can go to trevormuir.com, or if you want to dive into project-based learning, you can go to epicpbl.com or check out any of my books. They're pretty easy to find on the internet, so connect with me there. And get ready. There's going to be more of these podcasts soon, so make sure you're subscribed. Feel free to leave a review if that's something you like to do. That always helps other people find out about it. And really, thanks for listening. Talk to you next time.